How's it going, Critter Family? I hope you all are doing well. Today we're going over a suggestion I received recently titled, "This Big Young Cane Corso is Scaring All the Dogs. Can I Get Him Socialized and Living a Normal Life?" This is from Beckman's dog training, Joel Beckman, on his channel. If you like him and you're interested in him, you want to go support him, then go subscribe to him, check him out, and all that stuff. I don't agree with his methods. I don't agree with a lot of his terminology. It has nothing to do with who he is as a person. I just don't like how he interacts with dogs or animals in general, and the ideals that he spreads around. But it's a free country. If you like him, go check him out and go support him. If you want to see his video first, I'm going to be pausing a lot, so go check out the video. There's the title right there. And then you can come back here, or vice versa. I'm going to be breaking this down a lot and trying to point out what I see that the dog is saying versus what the human, being Joel, is saying. What the human may be interpreting. And we can't know for certain. I just know from my own experience that when I watch a dog exhibiting certain behavior, I can then begin to predict what will come afterwards, especially if I'm interacting with the dog in a certain way. So thank you to all my Patreon supporters and everybody else for the great suggestions. My move-in is going along very nicely, getting some kind of decorations up slowly. So if you're interested in checking out what I have to say about this, then let's get started.
5 minutes before this, right? He hasn't said hi to me. He's whined.
So I think he's talking about how he just met the dog.
This dog doesn't want to bite anybody. Now, because I met the dog 5 minutes ago, I don't know. I don't know whether he'll bite me or bite the camera person when he's in a high-stress situation. I have to start to eliminate triggers and go, okay, he's not going to bite me. He's not going to bite the camera person. Great, let's move on. Okay, so now he's on leash barking at dogs. Now will he bite me? Now will he bite the camera person? Now will he bite the dog?
Okay, so he makes some good points. The first point I want to, point out is that this young, I think 1-year-old Cane Corso is very nervous. He shows a lot of signs of anxiety. The hackles, which is the hair on the back of his, on the back of your neck, the hair all the way down his spine, stands up a lot. They call that piloerection, where the hair stands on end. He has a docked tail, so it's very hard to see, but his tail does stay down and low for the most part. His ears are also cropped. I'm not a fan of either of those. They are simply for cosmetics. There's no need to do that, especially if he's not a working dog. I'm not saying the owner did that. A lot of times breeders do that and you get the dog that way, but I just don't like that. But so when you remove parts of the dog's body, those are parts that are very important to see, because that's how they use those body parts to communicate with you. You can still read a dog for the most part, through the whole entire, the totality of circumstances, or the totality of the dog, read all the body language and the situation, all together, but it just makes it a little more difficult to read those little minute bits of body language. But a dog in general, as he talks about, this dog isn't going to bite me. I mean, the dog could bite you at any point, but chances are very, very high, from my own experience, that depending on how you work with the dog, it's really hard to get a dog to actually want to bite you. You have to be trying to get the dog to bite you, or you have to be really stupid. So in a case like this, could this dog bite more so than, say, my Shiba when he was around? Yes, this dog here, if you put too much pressure on him, he will probably very easily react. Versus, my good boy Adonis, rest in peace, little man. He would never bite. I mean, unless you were really trying to be very aggressive with him, you would have to really push him to bite. But this dog, I think, if you just went to go hug him or get into his face too much, he may bite. He's just a very nervous dog. Doesn't mean it's a bad thing. Doesn't mean it's the dog needs to be punished or corrected for that. We just have to, as he says, eliminate the triggers. But you do that by preparing the dog, building them up to be able to tolerate and even become comfortable around certain triggers. So the point I'm trying to make is that a dog will not just go out into they let this Cane Corso go. He's not just going to run to random people and bite them. Dogs don't just bite for no reason. They bite for a reason, unless there is a medical condition, and even then, I mean, they would have to be rabid. But this dog clearly is not rabid, and he's not running around trying to bite people. I mean, they're just walking around, the dog, and even if, say, I were to go and try to kick this dog and, start a fight, of course I never would, but, even then, a dog will likely just bite you and run away. They're not going to sit there and maul you. Again, those are very specific instances, and you would need a veterinary behaviorist to help you with that.
Right there, it showed me, and it showed you, this guy's not looking to bite anybody. Great, check that off the
Well,
list.
yeah, most dogs
Move
are
on
not.
to
They're
dog.
not trying to
Now
bite
he's gonna
you.
see Prince for the first
They
time
bite
today.
because they are put into a situation where they feel they have they feel the need to protect themselves. They don't have the ability to flight, run. So in a situation of fight or flight, when we tether them on a leash or we lock them in a small area and then we put too much pressure on them, and by pressure I mean physical or social pressure, then we if they can't run away, then they have to fight. Most of the time they don't. So if he were to walk into this dog now, and if, say, the dog were cornered, and you walk into them, the dog can't get away from you, they will very likely react and maybe try to bite you to get you to go away. That's spatial pressure. Physical pressure could be touching on the dog. It doesn't have to be physically touching, but I mean like pushing pressure, but it could be touching on the face and the eyes. It could be brushing too much, or just too much in the dog's personal space, and it makes them nervous. You're building up with anxiety. Or pressure like on the leash. If you put a leash on, you're pulling up on the dog, that's pressure too. So when a nervous animal is learning, when I teach pressure and release, it's the animal learns more on the release of pressure. I always use the analogy, you fill up a balloon with hot air, you're getting nervous. If you never stop blowing that air, it's going to pop. And that would be the dog learning a bad lesson. The dog could run away, the dog could bite, they could snap, they could react, whatever. But if you fill up that balloon with a little bit of hot air and you stop, and then they kind of sit with it, and then you release that air, then they learn, oh, okay. They learn a better lesson. They learn, like, I didn't get hurt. I didn't have a bad encounter. So they kind of learn over time. You continue doing that, put in a little bit of air and release it, and they learn, oh, okay, I can handle this. And hopefully you would use, positive reinforcement with that as well.
First dog meeting.
So the owner has the dog on, he seems very loud with his hands. And when I say that, they're when I say loud with their hands, here, this is just a slip leash. He's doing this a lot. He wraps it around his hand, which can be very dangerous because this can, break your hand and you get tight, and the animal can pull you. And a dog as big as this is very, very powerful. Believe me, this dog, if it really wanted to, could, I'm sure, pull this man off his feet, let alone his lady friend over here, or Joel. Very strong dog. Dogs can pull 3 times their weight. But when you do this, you're anticipating the dog reacting. When you anticipate, you teach the dog unknowingly to anticipate. So this becomes a precursor. So if the dog is on a loose leash, and then they're in an environment and they happen to see a dog, and you tighten that leash at the same time, or if they're just standing there, you tighten the leash, they begin to think, okay, I need to be on edge. This is the precursor to something's going to happen. That whole thing about energy going down the leash, it's kind of true, because you will act differently. You will release different hormones that the dog can sense. So right here, the dog is just kind of sniffing. He's preparing for something. The dog was looking, got a little bit interested, the mouth closed, and then he started to pull the dog this way. I wouldn't have put pressure on at that very moment. I would have let the dog, be on a loose leash while they're looking. If they start to get too into a hard stare, then I would move it in front of their shoulder. So if I were him, instead of, let's go back a couple seconds. So, he's going to move over on this side.
He hasn't met dogs in his life. He had a couple bad incidents.
And if this dog right here, at this moment, I would let him have his loose leash. If he takes a step towards the other dog, or he starts to, give a hard stare where you can tell that he tenses up, I would move in front of his shoulder, or maybe at an angle, I can't show with my hands, at an angle this way. So I'm in front of his shoulder, in front of his vision. And as soon as he looks at me, I would start backing away and getting really excited. And that's how I'm going to call him away without having to drag him. The leash may be tight, because we don't want him to get any further ahead of us. But, if I can get in front of him and I can bring him back, then I'm going to move him a few feet away and just stand there and let him have that loose leash again. Because I want him to learn that he can look at things on a loose leash. If he's on a loose leash, he's less likely to be as reactive, because when we have tension on us, we feel tight, we feel trapped, and dogs feel the same thing too. So
dog park.
It's right here. He's looking. He corrects him.
How many dogs?
He's forcing the sit by holding up on the leash. I don't care about a sit. If a dog is looking at something and they're nervous, I'm not worried about obedience, because we make the dog shark bait that way. We make them appear less intimidating. So then whatever the trigger is, it feels more comfortable to come in. I don't care if my dog is sitting. Right now, I mean, over time we can work on that with distractions. But right now, I just want him to be comfortable. I want him to know that he can look at another dog while he's standing or sitting or in whatever position he or she wants to be in. And they can look at them. And as long as they're not staring at them, they're looking at them. If I can get their attention to look away, perfect. I'm going to reward them. If I can't get their attention, and fireworks can go off behind them and they're still staring, we're too close. So we increase distance. A lot of people think I'm running away from a situation when I'm working with clients and we back up. We see a dog coming and I can already tell that I know that that dog is going to make this dog reactive based on this dog's body language that I'm working with. Same with this guy. He's probably right on the edge of reacting. I'm sure he sees prints behind the camera. So I read that and I say, okay, this plus this is going to equal this. I can anticipate the reaction of the dog. So to prevent that from happening, because that means the dog is practicing that much more, then I'm going to move the dog a distance away so I can practice with them below threshold. So I can actually teach them a behavior I want instead of correcting a behavior I don't want. When they're overreactive, when they're over threshold and they're reactive, as I'm sure we'll see here in just a minute, then we're not able to teach them anything. So he's forcing a sit,
freak the heck out,
and that was pressure and release, pulling up until the dog sits, and then he releases. That's not how I use pressure and release. I don't force a sit that way, or I don't teach sit using pressure and release. I only ever use it very lightly on a harness if a dog is pulling on leash, and that link is in the description below.
Not this dog.
So he's smelling.
Now,
there's no reward here, but he is showing curiosity.
The dog is not...
The dog, in my opinion, I don't think all Cane Corsas drool quite this much, so he could be hypersalivating, again, a sign of anxiety. So he's already moving forward. I wouldn't move forward at this point yet. A lot of people make the mistake that, oh, hey, he's calm, let's move forward. They move forward too quickly. And trust me, I've made that mistake more times than I can count with Adonis. That was fine. He could have rewarded him there. That would have been perfect. Sit there and reward and just stand there for 10 minutes if you want to, or 5 minutes or 2 minutes or 30 seconds, and then move on, move away, let him sniff, and then come back to it and work another, 5 minutes or so. I would just sit there, and as long as he's just sitting there and calm, occasionally, maybe once every 30 seconds, once a minute, it depends on how focused the dog is. I would give him a little treat. Little piece of dehydrated liver, a little piece of hot dog, whatever. If they're really into their kibble, you can give them their kibble, but I want to give him a high value reward so he starts to see the other dog as something good. He's going to say, oh, when I see this dog, I associate them with something good, versus who knows what's going through his mind. It kind of speeds up the relationship between the dog and the stimulus if you're using positive reinforcement, which the dog dictates what is positive and what is not, what is rewarding to them. So food of some value is usually going to be, pretty good reinforcement for the dog.
This crazy lunger, I want to hurt other dogs. This dog has
so he's looking away, so he's still below threshold, which is very good. This guy is kind of anticipating, oh god, boy, so that would have been a perfect time to reward, but this guy doesn't know to do that. And Joel isn't even reinforcing that. The dog was able to look, give a little sniff, perfect air sniff. He looked away several times and he goes right back behind his owner, and his owner is only thinking about keeping control. That would have been the perfect time to reward him with, again, I use food in the beginning. Food is the number one way to overcome fear. It speeds up the training process. Honestly, people don't believe it. They think corrections do, but no, they think, we use food at first, and then over time, when the dog shows that they're really productive, then at this stage, we can move away from food and move to real life rewards, letting him sniff, walk away from this, pressure of the other dog, and let him go sniff, let him be loose again, and then come back. You will always fade away from the treats eventually, but with corrections, it seems like you never fade away from that.
Okay.
So
you know how many dogs come out here
him,
and freak?
He's trying to force him back to look at the other dog, and he's forcing him into a sit, even though the dog was telling him fantastically that, hey, I looked at it and I want to move away on my own. That's totally fine. I'm a big advocate for dogs giving and taking away consent, just like humans. Dogs and animals, when I'm interacting with them, they have the right to remove consent of petting, of interaction. This dog is saying it's a little nervous. He chose to move away on his own. We want to reward that behavior. We don't want him to learn and be reinforced for becoming trapped. Dogs have a way of trapping themselves. They run up to, I know an Aussie, Aussie Shepherd, she would run up to you. And go belly up. And as soon as you went to go pet her, she would start growling and snapping because she thought running up to you and going belly up was the right answer. She didn't realize she was getting herself trapped. So I just stopped petting her. I would stand there. She would go belly up. I would wait for her to leave, or I would toss a treat away. And she learned, oh, I don't have to come get myself in a corner, get myself in a pickle, because it makes me nervous. And we re-taught her, you don't have to come for attention if you don't want it. If, that she was trained very aggressively with, very abusive techniques when she was very young, according to, the owner. So anyway, dogs don't know how to get themselves out of a bad situation. So we can teach them that.
The F out when they see a dog. Look at that broken fence.
Forcing that sit.
Like, this is a subdued, I don't want to do anything. I don't want to be bothered. It's not great. I don't want him growling at Prince. I do not see the dog that's freaking the hell out. I see.
And that's great because he's not over threshold yet. He's not. So use this as an opportunity to reward him. He's just chilling. I mean, this guy, again, is focusing on the control. He's not focusing on the dog. When I'm working with people, rarely do I take the leash. I let them have the leash, but I do reward the dog a lot as we're talking. And I try to point out the moments why I reward when I do. There's a method to my madness. I'm not just giving away free cookies. I do because they're cute sometimes, but it's because I'm noticing any little thing and I can reward it. And by any little thing, I actually mean any little thing. If the dog is looking at another dog and they look away, reward for that. If they're just air sniffing and they're not staring, reward for that. If they're standing around and they sit, reward for that. Anything you want, you can just reinforce, and the dog will start trying those behaviors more versus reacting.
It's great, man. Keep walking.
So, working too fast, he's pushing the dog, lip lick, the dog is nervous. He practically has to, he's not dragging the dog. Oh, okay, so that was caused by human error. So we're going to turn this up a little bit more. I'm going to go back and see what happened there. He's so ready to, he's so ready to correct, and he's causing this dog to become more reactive. So the more he pulls on the leash, the more the dog gets reactive. Just watch these very carefully. Goes to sniff.
Away from another dog behind a fence. And
so the dog sniffed, saw, jumped up and reacted. I think he would have stood there, but the owner pulls up on the leash, and then he's going to react some more because the owner continues to pull up on the leash.
Freaking out, barking, lunging.
So he pulled up higher, choking the dog. The dog's tail is tucking. We got the hackles raised.
I want you to watch this second bark and lunge.
That was caused because the human was so jittery, and because he can control this dog. I'm glad he doesn't have a prong collar. I like it. It's a nice wide flat collar, but this is not how you use it. He's simply teaching the dog what not to do, which is don't react. He's not helping the dog learn anything. So he's missed all the opportunity he could have to reward the dog. If I chose to walk up the dog up this quickly, I would not work this quickly. I don't care to get him fixed to living a quote-unquote normal life. What is a normal life? It depends on everybody. Everybody has a different definition of that. And getting him socialized. Socialize is being comfortable around other dogs. It doesn't mean you have to play with them. And you want appropriate dogs. I don't think Prince is an appropriate dog, demo dog. You want them to be socialized with different, there's brick, there's wood, there's metal fencing, there's grass, there's water, there's different trees, there's pine trees, there's palm trees, there's trucks going by, there's planes, trains, and automobiles, there's balloons and umbrellas. That's all getting your dog socialized. Used to being in a train station or going to the airport or going to the bus stop or, walking on cobblestone versus cement versus sand at the beach versus mulch or grass when it's wet or dry or snow. That's socializing. Having your dog hear a metal pan fall from behind them or from a distance or watching a gardener on one of those riding lawnmowers. That's all socializing. This is not. This is just flooding. This is flooding 101. And this is not going to help the dog. It is just telling the dog, don't react. But it doesn't help him feel comfortable around the other dog. He's only going to act this way in seemingly control when the owner is there or when a human is there. When they're not, who knows what he's going to do? He's probably going to try and run, and if he can't run, he's going to fight because his anxiety's building up. So if I were working with him and I went up and he started reacting, if I were to work this quickly, I mean, sometimes it happens, we get snuck up upon, if we're in a park and someone's walking up behind us and the dog reacts, I just walk him away. If I have to drag him away while they're reacting, we do. And then I say, okay, I need to really work to set this dog up for success. If they keep reacting, I say, we need to change environment. This is way too much for him, him or her. And there's nothing wrong with admitting, hey, you know what? We made some mistakes, but it's not the end of the world, as long as we learn from those mistakes. But it seems like Beckman and even this guy is not learning anything, and this poor dog is paying for it.
You tell me if
he just steps in the dog, cowers, and looks at him. Very hard stare right here. No good boy, no anything. Just overall master and slave.
This is a bark
poor thing.
Or a lunge that has intent.
He's just looking and he's correcting, and this is going to lead the dog to react more. All he knows is correction. Pressure. Now he's holding on to him. Well, he's just looking at the other dog. He may be growling, but it doesn't matter. I don't care if the dog is growling. He's not helping anything, and he doesn't learn that. This dummy, this human doesn't learn from his own mistakes. This is all pressure.
I'm going to slow it down.
Growling,
okay,
pressure,
come in just
release.
A second. I want you to viscerally, it's very important what your
This
gut
poor
tells
dog.
you about this bark.
Oh, and now we're going to move him forward, and the second he tries to drag the dog forward, the dog reacts. And so then he's going to correct him again.
Viscerally, it's very important what your gut
tells
you
here.
about this bark and lunge.
Pulls
right
pressure. That was more like a pop pressure, and then he holds on to him. This is your fault, human. And Joel, you're setting him up for failure. Hackles are up, tail is up. Now there's a barrier, and Prince doesn't help anything either because he's all prancing around, probably pissing on everything because he always does. It's not Prince's fault, but he was raised to be, as Beckman would say, a jerk because he calls dogs a jerk. So Prince is just, he's a bully. This is not helping. This is going the opposite way. If you were fine before, practice that more. This is what you don't want. If your dog is reacting like this, you're working too fast. Training should be boring, and I always tell people, if it looks like you're rewarding for nothing at all, you're doing it right. If your dog is not reacting, you're doing it right because you want to feed that behavior. Literally and figuratively, you want to practice that behavior. Right now, this dog is practicing being afraid of other dogs and may learn to tear the fence apart and attack the other dog, or be attacked by the other dog. That's not a lesson we want to teach him, and we as humans can control that. So, God,
here it is in
flooding.
Looks
that
bad.
was caused
Actually,
by the
it's worse
human.
in slow motion. I want you to tell me.
He's reacting, and the human jerks him back to him. The dog is not. The dog is fearful and frustrated and feels trapped. This is frustration, in my opinion.
What do you think? Is it terrible? No, it's not.
Of course, it's not.
It just isn't.
I mean, screw whatever. I don't care whatever Joel says. Joel is an idiot. He doesn't ever explain anything anyway. I mean, it's not terrible. It just isn't. Why? How is it not terrible? To me, I don't see any behavior dog shows as terrible. I see it as, is it a difficult behavior to work on, and how long it will take to work on, and how difficult it will be for the owners to work on. Because I'm training the human, not just the dog. I'm training the human to basically continue training like I do, or communicate with their dog in a way their dog and them, they can understand. And that's the most difficult part, is trying to teach humans to get out of this kind of mindset that we have to see the behavior, we have to correct it versus prevent the behavior. It doesn't mean we're cowering away or we're running away from it. We prepare the dog. I don't know what's so hard for people to understand that. I'm probably talking to the wrong audience, but because the people who know. And I love you guys for that. So many great comments on my channel of just awesome animal people. So thank you. Keep doing what you're doing.
Has holdback in him. The owner gives a correction. I would too. You can't.
No. You set this up, Joel. This dog has no need for a correction. You have no right to correct the dog because you forced him into this position, and now you're going to correct him. It just shows your ignorance.
Let your dog bark and lunge constantly.
No.
I wish I would have known about the farmer's dog a lot sooner.
But it's just
Choke, 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 pressure,
You've
pressure,
seen
pressure,
dogs
pressure,
go at that
pressure,
fence,
pressure,
stare at the other
pressure,
dog in
pressure,
the eye,
pressure,
try to
pressure.
jump
He's
up
still
on
holding
that
onto the
fence,
leash.
track
Pressure.
prints running
A
along
little
that
bit of
fence
release,
and
still
stare at him in
pressure.
the eye.
Flooding.
This guy is saying, please get out of here, other dog, or
Okay,
Dad, please
release and
take
jerks
me
in that
away.
way.
Which the guy took him away, which is fine because
Shake
the dog
off, he's
calmed.
relieving stress. Hackles are still up, so
Yeah,
he's still
but
amped
we're
up
not
and
gonna-
nervous.
We're not going to take you away when you're freaking out. Now, I
No,
tried to-
you should. You should do exactly that. You don't sit there and correct a dog and hold them there until they give up. That's learned helplessness. This is flooding. If you're afraid of spiders and I put a 10-inch tarantula on your face and I zap you with a cattle prod every time you freak out, or if I put you in a bathtub full of daddy long legs and they're crawling all over you and you're freaking out, whatever your worst fear is, I put your hand over a hot camping fire and I hold it there. And you're in some kind of contraption, you can't move away from it until you stop freaking out and you give up that no matter what you do, you're gonna get burned. And then I release you. But it turns out it's like CGI fire, so it doesn't even hurt, right? But the thought of it, right? So, CGI fire, one of those little like fans with like the paper blowing and a little wind. So that's exactly what you do. If you go too far, if you work too quickly and your dog reacts, just get them out of there. And then try to fix your plan and reset. And that's the great thing. Dogs can be, pretty much any animal can learn and be taught something. They can be untaught that behavior and they can be retaught that behavior. You can teach a dog that sit now means go get the ball. And when you say sit, they go get the ball. And then you can also reteach them that no longer means get the ball and sit means sit down again. I mean, you don't need to correct them. You can easily just move them away because they're not learning anything when they're there reacting. It's flooding. It's learned helplessness. They don't learn anything. Here, when they're away, they can start to learn something.
The leash, he's growling. I don't know if you can hear it. He's growling at me right there. He's unsure. He just met a dog. He's at a new place. This is not the time for me.
I don't know what the point of that was for. Why the owner should have been the one to walk him away. I don't know why Joel walked him away. I mean, this dog's probably going to be here for a board and train, but the owner is the one that needs to learn this. But all these trainers that do this think about only training the dog. The owner needs to learn how to have soft hands, how to properly read his dog and not rely on force. I mean, I work with dogs to get them so soft that anybody in the family can walk them. And it's not through pain and fear and force and intimidation. I teach them to be gentle, to listen to a whisper, so to speak. So I can just use a finger's worth of pressure to get them to stop. I mean, Adonis was so soft I could, put a little twig in the ground and put his leash around it. And as soon as he felt any resistance, he would just sit there. I try to teach dogs that they can be soft, and everybody in the immediate family that's going to be working with the dog all the time, friends or family, that anyone young or older, or if you have an accident, you're in crutches or you're in a sling, you can still walk your dog and manage them. Anxiety is a whole other thing, but as far as just being soft on the leash.
And put this dog over threshold. Now, over threshold. Oh my gosh. Force-free trainers. The dog can never be over threshold. That's not true. That is so...
Dude, I'm sorry. I know people don't like it when I say that. I'm trying not to. That's just my go-to word, but... So Joel, this idiot here who can't, train a whale, can't train a dog, let alone, a whale in SeaWorld. He's all proud about that. This dummy says that you can, that we force-feed trainers say you can never put a dog over threshold. I didn't say you can't ever. I said that I don't choose to. If it does happen, it does happen. And if it does, we go back and fix it. Because you get further with honey than you do vinegar. You can be stupid and ignorant and abusive and teach your dog through force, fear, pain, intimidation, flooding, and they develop learned helplessness. You can teach your dog that way. So, I mean, there's a lot more to this video. I've already gone over it long enough. If you want to see the original, go ahead and watch the original. I'm just going to get more amped up. I feel he's just going to be flooding this dog. I guess if you want to see a part 2 of this video, let me know in the description. I'll save this video and I can come back to it for a part 2 if you're interested in that. For now, it's just not impressive. The ignorance in the world. I mean, this guy gets paid like $1,000. Like, he charges, I don't know, like, what is it? I think he charges like $275 for 30 minutes of a video, Skype video, or maybe more than that. Good Lord, dude. But anyway, that was my review of just this little bit, and there's so much that goes into it. You know, I'm not just talking to hear myself talk. I'm, you know, trying to open everybody's eyes. There's so much more that goes into it than just the old school way of putting all the blame on the dog and saying the dog needs to be held accountable, all this nonsense. It's time to hold the dummy humans accountable. So, thanks for watching. I hope you all got something from this. Let me know what you think of the video. And if you want a part 2, in the meantime, go say hi to your little critters. Give them some kind of loving. Say hi to do it for me. And in the meantime, practice peace, patience, and positivity.